All right, hello. I'm
Hello.
here today with Coach Anthony Joe. This is a special conversation for me because, as you may or may not know, Coach, you had a big influence on me growing up in basketball, and is a big reason why I, felt drawn to go into coaching as well. So,
Mm.
thank you for your time today, and I would love to just start off by knowing. Kind of what's your overall mission or philosophy of life, if you have one?
Overall mission and philosophy of life has changed a lot as I've grown older, but now currently it's basically just living my life fullest. Especially since my dad passed away last year or 2 years ago, it really changed my perspective in terms of life is fleeting and you take it with you. So live your life to the fullest and do the things that you can and want to, but of course you on your own, based on the means that you have, right? You don't want to overspend, but also you don't want to put everything away for a rainy day when that rainy day may not come. So it definitely has changed there in terms of just living life to the fullest, doing what you want within your means, but also being a good person, of course, right? Being a good person and doing what you can to leave the world a better place, hopefully. And that's through my own children, of course, my people that I've brought into this world, but also as a teacher and as a coach, like trying to help the people that I come in contact with and helping them to better people. And then hopefully just that little portion of my world will help, everybody else in our community and the world in general.
Do you have any specific examples of how your life has changed or how your behavior has changed since your father's passing?
So the big one that I just could sort of mention was just living the life to the fullest, which means if there's an opportunity, just go ahead and do it. Right before it would be like, oh, nah, I need to save my money for this, or no, that's it's not really something I should be doing or I have time for. But like opportunities have gone, and then once they've gone, they're gone. So it's like, well, actually, just do it. Just do it if you've got the means, and if you really want to do it, just go ahead and do it. And even small things like buying food. Sometimes it used to be, oh, no, that's too expensive. Just save your money. But it's like, I feel like eating it. Just go and buy it and just do it. Right. So it's, I guess, being a little bit more selfish, even to put it that way. It's like, just do it for yourself. If you feel like it, just go ahead and do it. Right.
What's up?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That would be the biggest thing that's changed in the way I view things since my dad has passed away. Of course, then also material things, not as important as they used to be. Right, buying shoes, buying clothes, having good stuff. Again, that's just things that you're not going to take with you, right? And so for me, especially with my kids, it's like the most important thing is just memories, right? Creating memories for them. Like when I thought about times with my dad, it's all just about the memories and the things that we did together. And if I'm thinking about for my kids and leaving them, of course I want to leave them with some resources, etc. But the biggest thing for them is like creating memories for them. And so that may be spending a bit more money to do stuff, or not spending money and buying stuff for them, rather just spending time with them and doing stuff with them. So yeah, those would be the two big things. Living life to the fullest and creating more memories rather than just things, material stuff.
Do you have a favorite memory with your father?
Oh, definitely. One that always pops to mind when I do think about my dad is he made kites with us. He like used bamboo from the garden. We had a garden. We had bamboo sticks in, take the bamboo and then cut it up and then use that frame to make a kite out of paper. And then we'd go down to the park, and then he used to smoke roll up cigarettes. So you take like the papers that you roll up cigarettes with, and then cut the lid in it, and then put it on the what do you call it, the string that goes to the kite, and then those little papers just fly up to the kite, which was like magic for us when we were kids. Made no sense, but it was really cool. That'd be one that always comes to mind when I think about my dad. But then it's all snippets, right? Just small things that happened that made me feel good or made me feel secure, or made me feel comfortable. Like my dad was a traditional Asian man who didn't say I love you, or didn't show affection the way that we do nowadays. But thinking back, it was like, oh, he did this because he loved me. Like he would, I remember playing soccer, he would move he got in trouble because when you take a corner kick, there's a corner flag, right? And he ran over and pulled the corner flag out of the way, and then he got told by the referee. He didn't know what he was doing, but he just did that because he wanted to help out. And small things like that, where it's like, you know, have you eaten yet? Or make sure you put on clothes, or just bits of advice that he would give us every now and then. And he would say it in a way where it's like, it wasn't really that helpful. But then now that I think back on it, that was just his way of him expressing himself. That's the only way he knew how. So hindsight, definitely, you think about these kinds of things.
What's the most important lesson that he might have been able to teach you or pass on to you?
I think he didn't directly teach it to me, but I learned this from him, is that he would say to us, go out and meet different people and then use them. And at the time I was like, what do you mean use them? And because his English language wasn't the greatest, and then at the time I didn't understand it, but now I understand. It's like when you meet people, there's always something that you can get from your encounter with this person. So not use them, but just learn from this encounter. And there's always something to learn from somebody, whether it be a good encounter or a bad encounter. You can definitely learn something from them. And then, yeah, that was my dad. He would just be like telling us things, but not with his limited language. He would try to explain, but we understood it maybe later, but not at the time. And that would be the biggest thing. Just like a relationship or an encounter with someone, there's always something you can learn from them. Whether it's a good or a bad encounter, you always learn something.
Is there anything about you that you feel he might have not fully understood about you?
That's a good question. And then growing up, there are plenty of things where I thought he didn't understand, right, when you're a young man or a teenager. But now that I have grown up and I experienced life itself and I think about these things, I think he fully understood me as a person, but he just, wasn't able to express all of the stuff. And as a young person, you want your parents to say things or particular things or do things a particular way, but that's just not the way it works, right? But now as an adult and with my own kids, I can think back and say, oh yeah, I can definitely say that he fully understood me. He just maybe didn't show it in the way that I wanted him to show it.
Do you have a specific example of that?
I guess like, I don't know, it's like he would often say that when we were growing up, he said, oh, you're too soft, you have to be stronger, and you got to be a man, etc. And then I always felt like, okay, I got to prove myself. And then he never would say, he never affirmed that, right? He never said, "Oh, yeah, good job. Now you're a man." But of course, I'm pretty sure he realized that after I had my own kids and I became a upstanding teacher or an educator and able to do my own thing and then not have to worry about looking after me anymore and make my own way in the world. That obviously he would feel like, okay, now this guy's, he can look after himself. But as a child, you still look for the affirmation from your parents, right? But they're not going to say that to you, especially not an old Asian dad. He's not going to say that outwardly, but he's going to show it through just grunts or hugs or various things like that.
Do you have anything that's kind of on your bucket list, I guess?
Yeah, I think I want to do travel some more. Like I haven't gone through Europe. I've only been to England. So travel is definitely on my list. The whole intention when I came to Taiwan was just to hang out here for about a year and then go elsewhere. But I came and then I met my current wife Karen, right, and then stayed on for the last 24 years. And then once you get kids, it's really hard to travel. So I would like to travel around Europe and go to those various countries. Been to America, been to Canada, South America maybe, but definitely Europe is on the list. But yeah, so many places to go, right? And now you got kids, it's hard. Maybe when they get a bit older, we can take them with us. But then it costs a bit of money too. So we'll see. I remember traveling with my parents as a young person, even when I was 17, 18, when we traveled around China. I didn't really appreciate it at the time. So I'm like, maybe it's a waste of money to take our kids to any of these kind of places. They only want to do park, playgrounds, right? Games, that kind of stuff. They're not into stuff that we're into, like the relics or sightseeing, etc., which is understandable, right? I remember at myself, it was like we went around China when I was like 17. I was like, oh, another pagoda, or another temple. You don't get it at the time, right?
How has Karen helped to make you a better person?
Oh, many ways. I think number one, she's helped me become a more confident person in terms of believing in myself. Like every time I used to be quite hesitant to do something. She'd be like, no, do it. Let's try it. Right. You never know what's going to happen. Case in point, when I was teaching English at a bushy back, and then the job at TYPA came up. And then at the time we were living downtown Taipei City, and I was like, oh, it's too far. Timor's too far. It's not, I don't think it'd be a good fit. But she's like, no, you should do it because you're into sports and something that you're good with kids, so why not? And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll do it. And then, right, she gave me that extra push. And a number of other occasions, she's also given me an extra push to go and try and do stuff and believe in myself. And so she's helped me a lot there. Of course, just being a partner, right? You learn a lot from your partner, and good and bad, right? You learn about yourself. I've definitely learned about you can't change people, even though you want to, right? You both come with backgrounds. You both come from different families. It's quite interesting. Like we're both Chinese, right? But with such different backgrounds, I'm Chinese, New Zealand, Chinese, Taiwanese, and then you're like, yeah, you should have common ground, but there's a lot of differences. Just makeup of family history, dynamics, family beliefs, and so when two people come together, like, how do we mesh and what is the norm, right? I have my perspective, she has her perspective. Who's right, wrong, right? It's trying to figure it out together. So that would also be a big thing that I've learned from her, is how to be a partner and how to live with someone. You know, you live with them for a long time, every day, for a long time. 20 something years now. Don't tell her I don't know how long.
What's been the biggest like difference in perspective that you had to work out between you and her?
Whoa. I think at the start, it was, in terms of a relationship, like, how much individuality should you have per person, right? We both came in with different expectations of, as a couple, how much time do we spend together? Should you do it in terms of wanting to hang out with your friends? And we both had different expectations at the start, so there was a lot of butting heads at the time, and just working it out between us in terms of, right, should we do this together as a couple? How much time do I need to go and hang out with my friends, or she needs to hang out with her friends? Right. So there's a lot of back and forth. And all that, and once you start living together, then all those little things, as you probably know yourself, right? Silly things like cups up and right way up or upside down, cleaning up, all those kinds of things, right? Personal hygiene habits, all those things you got to work out because you live in a place with each other. So that's also an interesting journey, right, to go down. And then next level, it's like looking after your kids and expectations you have for raising children, and familial role, right? What's a dad's role? What's a mum's role? And what do we want for our kids as well? Like, where do we push them and how do we raise them? That's a big thing. But it's give and take, right? Some things you wanna fight with, and some things you got to let go. But it's a journey, definitely a good journey, right? Don't get me wrong, but it's definitely a journey.
Do you remember the moment or kind of around the time that you decided that she was the one you wanted to spend your life with, to get married?
There wasn't an exact aha moment, but it was definitely it was more of a yes. I think it's time that we move our ship to the next level, and more of a progression than a aha type of thing. I think it was more for myself, right? In terms of, okay, now I'm ready to marry this person. I'm at a comfortable position in my life and in my development, is like, okay, I am ready to give myself to the person fully. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it was more about progression and discovery development from me, in terms of, I would like to marry this person. Hopefully she will do the same.
What would you say has been the most challenging experience of your life?
Definitely fatherhood is very challenging, right? Especially at the start, because all of a sudden you have this life form that you are solely in charge. I've never, I had turtles growing up, I guess. Never had pets to look after. first time I had to look after, somebody else, and this person is fully dependent on you. When you have that baby for the first time, it's like, oh my God, this person is relying on me. And then it can be quite overwhelming when you start thinking about, okay, now I have to raise this child, I have to get resources for this child, I have to look after this child, I have to teach this child, right? And that can be a challenging experience, but it's like the most rewarding experience that you can go through and feel, because you grow as a person, right? You learn a lot about yourself, but you also, when you get back so much from this little child, from this little person, and it's actually helped me as a teacher as well. Like before, when I was dealing with students and dealing with parents, and even as a coach, I didn't understand the bond that parents have with their children. But now that I do anything for my child, right, and sometimes go overboard just because I love my child so much. But now that I'm a parent myself, I can be more understanding, and I know where these parents are coming from when they want to help their child so much. And so it's given me a really good perspective on that dynamic as well. So it was a challenging experience, definitely, but super rewarding at the same time.
Was there a particular like period of time or a particular like situation with regarding being a father or being a parent that was especially challenging?
I think there's levels to it, and different time periods, right? Of course, the first child, when that first child comes, that's great, because now your life has totally changed. You have no children to one child, and then every step of the way is totally new. So you go through the various stages of like them being now they're nappies, and then now there's feeding, and now now they can crawl, and now he's starting to walk. There's levels there and the progression there. And then you add a second child, and that's a whole nother experience, because you have another baby which you've had before, but then you also have an infant. And the big challenge with that was, when I had one kid, it was like, okay, I have all my attention to this kid, and now I have a second kid. It's like, how can I split my attention between these two kids? The first kid, I used to put all my attention to him, all my love to this kid. Do I have enough to spread out between the two kids? That's the next challenge. And then the third one comes along, and you're like, okay, I've had two already, and it's easier to third. But now it's like the juggle between, you've got an infant toddler who's about 4 years old who needs your attention, but there's also a baby. And then it turned out we had to split. It almost turned into a split family, where Karen would look after the baby, and then I would look after the two toddlers. And then, once we look after toddlers, and then we come back together. But I had to take them out, and the baby would have to have a rest, and Karen would have a rest. So there'd be like a time period where there was the challenge was like a split family. And but it keeps going. Then you get 4, and then the kids get older, and there's different challenges. But I'm glad that we get through those baby times, man. Looking back on baby times, it's so hard, especially sleep and feeding and all the stuff that goes with babies. Now that our kids are, older than toddlers, it's much easier. And I see like cousins or friends that have baby, it's like, man, do not want to go back to that ever.
If you could only share one lesson to pass on to your children, what would that be?
I think you just have to be a good person, right? If you're a good person, which means like someone that is easy to get along with, is not offensive, just does the right thing, then I think you can do well in anything, any situation. You can handle the situation, whatever life throws at you. I think as long as you're a good person, if you have a good moral base, then whatever is thrown your way, you can definitely handle it. And especially when you live in a world where you have to navigate relationships and you navigate different worlds and different people and worldviews, as long as you have a good grounding and you are a good person, then you'll be okay. I think that's the main thing. Just be a good person. Or sometimes we say, don't be a dick. I don't know if you want me to say that, but don't be a dick is what we like to say. Don't be that guy that people don't like, right? Or people don't want to be around. Just be a good person.
Do you feel like there's a universal like right thing or what it means to be a good person?
Definitely. I think if you look at religions, worldviews, although there's different ways to say it and there's different ways to teach it, it all boils down to the basic being a good person, right? If you look at Christianity or if you look at Buddhism, or if you look at any of the kind of views of how to how to conduct yourself, it's all just like being a good person, right? Going through life and going through the world, looking after yourself, looking after others, looking after your surroundings, and not poisoning whatever it is you're dealing with, right? Leaving things, got them, nature as well, right? And so, yes, I would say yes, there's a universal standard of what is a good person, and it can be very basic, right?
In your opinion, do you feel like people in general are like getting better or worse or the same in terms of being good people and doing the right thing?
Oh, I think you definitely get more analytical, cynical when you get old. So it's hard to compare time periods, right? Because when I was younger, it was a different time period, but I had a different worldview. When I was 10, when I was 19, when I was 29, now I'm 48, got a different worldview. So it's hard to say that people are worse or better than 20, 30 years ago. I will say that the way of the world is different, and we see a lot of bad stuff in terms of news and information that comes our way. And whether or not that's worse than before, I think it's more just a product of technology and then being able to access that information easier, right? I'm sure 40 years ago, people were doing same dumb stuff that they're doing nowadays, but we see it on the phone, we see it on the news more, and there's cameras everywhere, so it's going to get caught all the time. It's like the old adage where it's like, oh, there are many more like criminals now, but maybe just getting reported more, and it probably was the same 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? And the way our for-profit news works or media works, they got to get the most shock value to get more views. So you get not good stories that get more attention. So those companies will put up more of those clickbaity headlines to attract more attention. So I would say no. I would say it's about the same. We just have more communication and access to information, I believe.
Is there any particular like social or technological trend that you are most concerned about in terms of it potentially having a negative impact on like the future of society?
Definitely the devices and the programs that come with these devices, and the goodness of it. And for young people, yeah, it's definitely a problem, right? And because it's come so fast, right, the last 10, 20 years, hasn't been enough research as to the detrimental effects on young people with the devices. And just anecdotally, you can see it. I can see it in terms of my own children or the students that I teach. Like, that device is so powerful in terms of pulling their attention and wanting their attention, and then the kids are just always on it. Like, when I grew up, video games were addictive, right? And we wanted to go play video games, but now you've got a video game in your pocket, right, that you can access anytime and anywhere you want, and you see pull out the devices, playing games, or just scrolling through those algorithms that give them what they want to see in the next one. And I remember us growing up, again, when I was growing up, we'd watch a program called America's Funniest Home Videos. You know that program?
Yep.
Right. And it was just snippets of people doing dumb stuff, falling over, whatever. And it was like a 30-minute show, and we loved it because it was just snippets of, like, you know, hilarious things that gave us the dopamine. But now people can do that, have access to those kinds of videos all day, every day. And that's a lot of content that people put out, right? Just 10 10-second videos of what they call shorts or whatever, right? And it's just so addicting, and it's just so appealing now. It's so different. Like, I watch my kids' media habit, and YouTube another one, and then they just watch shorts, or they watch like small videos of just like drivel, just mindless drivel. Brain rot is what they call it, right? And so I find myself telling them, you know what? How about we watch some cartoons? Because they got stories, and at least they've got some kind of morals, and then at least someone has edited these stories, right? And it's suitable for age appropriate. And which is crazy, because when we were younger, we were like, parents would be like, stop watching cartoons, it's a waste of time. But like, that's our kind of go-to now, is like, go watch a cartoon that's better for you, which I feel is crazy. So yeah, that would be the biggest worry I have, is like the devices and the power that it has over everybody. I mean, even adults, even as adults, we're like drawn to the devices, and so it's kids, the tough one.
What do you think is the solution to
that? For me right now, I'm just like delaying their access to phone. So I'm trying to hold off on getting my kid a phone, and I've kind of said, well, wait till you get to high school. That will be probably a better age for you to have your own device. Long-term solution? Don't know, man. Don't know. Because, yeah, I understand technology is part of our lives, but I think definitely delaying the exposure to it. It's like, it's pretty much like a drug, right? So we delay people to drink alcohol or smoke to like 18 when they can make the right choice. And I think almost like that is like a drug where, okay, we need to, as a society, you know what, you can't have this until you're at an age where you can make better decisions, better choices. And I think that's what some countries are starting to do. I think Australia has put an age limit. I don't know about devices or it's just social media, but I think some countries have started to do that, which is a good thing, I think.
You had talked a little bit about like a favorite experience or memory with your dad. Do you have one with your children, like a favorite memory or experience that stands out for you?
Mm. Right now, just as you said that, the biggest thing that comes to my head is just I picture them laughing, and each of their laughs is very distinct. And I think that's the biggest memory that I have with them is like just when they're laughing their heads off or they're laughing. And so yeah, there's lots of times where that's happened, of course. But yeah, for me personally, I think it's just spending time with them. There is no favorite memories, but just spending time with them, and then when they start talking about stuff that I haven't prompted them, right, helps me get into where they're at in terms of what they're thinking, but it also shows me that they trust me to tell me these kinds of that they're just thinking about, right? As a parent, you always like, oh, how was your day? And they're just like, oh, fine. But if you just sit down with them and then all of a sudden they just come out and say something and you're like, oh, that's cool. You thinking about that? That's really cool. And then we try and have a conversation about whatever they're thinking about. And it's what meaning and feeling when it comes from them. And they bring me into their world and what they're thinking. Sometimes it's stupid, but sometimes it's awesome.
If you, or I guess prior to that, how do you feel like, how good of a job do you feel like the current educational system does in terms of preparing like children and students for life in general or society?
It's tough because it's the world that they are going to come out into is always changing, and like preparing them in terms of like potential job that they have, I don't think it's something that's always going to be a challenge because things happen and changing so fast right now, right? There's a lot of jobs that weren't around 10 years ago. Industries weren't around 5 years ago. But like preparing them to be better people, I think we struggle a bit because there is so much focus on academics, and I see it around the world, and we cut out a lot of the stuff in terms of just them being kids and learning how to deal with social stuff and working with other people. I'll speak about my industry because that's what I know, but like sports and play is definitely an area where we're struggling to help our children with. There is no more, a lot less free play and free time. Now it's like training or prescribed activities, supervised activities. And then, yeah, there's no freedom, there's no creativity. There's no like working it out for yourself. It's like, here are the rules, follow these rules. This is the way we're going to do this today. This is the way we're going to do that. So it's a lot less creativity. So that's like after school, I guess, but also at school, like, there is no open learning kind of stuff, which we never had, yes, but there was always break time or after school time. But now it has to be a lot of times you have to be supervised. You have to be supervised. Whereas when we grew up, like, see you at 6 o'clock, come back when it's time for dinner. So that's definitely different. And that's probably not a good thing, I feel. But in terms of our education system, I think, yeah, it's tough because the future is changing so much. I mean, look at what has just come in the past 2 years with AI, right? No one saw AI come along. Now all of a sudden, how do we use AI? How do we control AI? How can we live with AI? Because it's right. There's a different way of learning now, and there's like everything's there. It used to be when the internet came out, how are we going to utilize this? Because all the information is available. They don't need to learn facts anymore. And then educators, we ways to utilize web internet. Right, there's no longer teaching facts, but how to find data and how to use that. But now it's like, okay, with this AI, how can we use that to help us, or how can we learn to use that? Is going to be a big challenge moving forward too.
In terms of educators, do you feel like it matters for your children? Like, let's say, like male and female, to have male teachers and female teachers, or does it matter to have that in terms of that kind of diversity, or does it not really? Do you feel like it's not really relevant?
I feel like there is still a need to have that role model, right? If you're a male, the male role model. If there's female role model. But also, if you're a male, you need a female role model. Well, so you definitely need both. And if you're at home, you have a male and a female at home. That's great, right? But then some people don't have that role model, so you definitely would need to do that through the education. Yeah. But in terms of teaching, doesn't matter who's teaching it, right? But the message should be the same. I think definitely it's just more of the looking at in terms of what do they do. This male does this, this female does this, and those kind of roles, and being around people, right? So I personally, in terms of schooling, I think single sex schooling is difficult. Not difficult, but it's like it robs the kids of like interaction with people of the opposite sex. So like mixed school is definitely better. But in terms of educators, a bit of both would be great. Yeah, for the kids.
If you were the kind of the head of TAS, what's one thing that you would change?
Dude, is this going? Who's gonna see that?
I don't think anyone.
All right, sweet then. If I was the head of TS, man, what would I change? I think the big thing that we need to change is curriculum-wise. I know we're Type American school, but I think we need to study more on Taipei and the Taiwan of our school. Yes, we have an American curriculum, and we need to follow a lot of the stuff and teach a lot of stuff like American history, but there definitely has to be more of an emphasis on Taiwan and Taiwanese history, which is lacking right now. I don't think we do Asian history until 9th, which is crazy. And so, yeah, the kids don't know anything about, they're not taught much about where they live. Because right now, like, I think our population has got to be about 90% Taiwanese people. So we should learn. The kids should learn about who they are, where they come from, and where they live. So I definitely think that would be a big piece that I'll try to advocate if I was head of school.
Are there any subjects that you feel like are taught, like that could be taught less, and some that are more? Like you mentioned, like Taiwanese or Asian history being your focus. Well, what's the trade-off? Like should they maybe, in your opinion, have less of in order to make these kind of trade-offs?
Honestly, it's all important, right? All the stuff that they're learning is important stuff, but there's a lot of math. I know that. Well, you got to have the core subjects, though. All right, that's just a base curriculum and a base education. So I don't think they need to take off anything, incorporate that. And I think, yeah, especially at TS, they learn a lot, and it's very advanced. So maybe they're advanced. No, yeah, like yeah, my kids now in middle school, stuff that I learned like senior year in the math category and various other stuff, which is correct ahead of where I was. I don't know if that's a shot at my education, but yeah, it's definitely very advanced. A lot of stuff that they're learning.
Yeah, because I also heard that maybe you would incorporate more like free time or play time, less structured time, and so there's a give and take, right? Like some things might have to lessen, or maybe they don't take math to that kind of advanced level,
right?
To create more opportunities.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, definitely. Especially middle school, they definitely need more. Free time and explore time. But yeah, it's different society. Like it's not a society where we go outside and we play, because we live in Taiwan. Where I grew up in New Zealand, it was like you just go out and play street or play park. It's just around the corner. A lot less cars. That is also a part of it, I think. It's my background, my experience. But you probably know better because you lived in. But me, it's a different upbringing, good or bad, I'm not sure, but it's definitely different.
What are you curious about now, like in terms of learning, or just for yourself, like for your own learning?
Right now, it's been like this for a while. It's like psychology, sports psychology is very interesting for me. After having coached and taught almost 20 years with our students at TAS, like how do we get the best out of young people, and how do we teach them how to compete, how to not be afraid to make mistakes. That's the that I'm pretty want to learn more about. Also, yeah, same as everybody, how better to use AI. I think we've only just scratched the surface, and every day you see more and more like, wow, that's amazing. You can do that now, and you can do that. So, yeah, that would be it's going to be very interesting over the next few years as to how that develops.
How would you promote like helping kids feel better about failing or making mistakes?
Making mistakes, like right now for me, it's all about the team, right? I think you would have heard this when we were talking. But in order to be able to make a mistake a person has to know that they're not going to be scorned, they're not going to be scolded, they're not going to be made fun of, right? So your teammates, they have to have your back, and they have to be positive all the time, no matter what, especially when your mistake is made, right? That's number one, because as a young person, you don't want to stand out, you don't want to be made fun of, you want to fit. And so if you make a mistake, you like get made fun of, or you are pointed out, then you're not going to do that again, right? So you have to make 100% in the knowledge that they're going to be maybe not positively congratulated or um, appreciated, but no one's going to say anything bad to them, right? And in the ideal world, going to be your teammates going to up and they're going to help, but at the very least, they're not going to be made fun of, or they're not going to have to worry about that.
Do you have anything in your life that you feel the most vulnerable about?
I think most people are the same, but just showing your true self to people, right? Everyone's always guarded, especially when you first meet people, and it's you have to be brave, put yourself out there, and show this is you in terms of maybe opinion, or maybe your attitude towards something, or showing that you're vulnerable, or talking about your emotions. I think that's the biggest part, right? Everyone's always a little guarded, because same as when you're a kid, you always still got that mindset. You don't want fun of. You just want to be. You just want to be loved, and so you tend to, or I tend to guard that by not fully expressing myself, especially if I'm just trying to engage the room, trying to hang back and see what everybody's at, putting in my full.
Do you have like an emotional pattern that you would most like to transform?
Change?
Yeah.
Like,
do you get frustrated a lot? Do you get angry a lot? Do you get sad a lot?
I do get frustrated. Yeah, I guess I do get frustrated. I've learned to deal with it. I get frustrated when people don't see that should be apparent, or not apparent, but going back to when I say like being a good person, it's like if people don't see that, or they act in a way where it's like this should be pretty apparent, this is how you should act, and people don't get, especially adults, and it's like, yeah, I don't know what to say to these people.
You mean when adults are acting like kids?
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, right. Or they just don't see the what they're doing is like not being a good person, right? Usually that's by something that they need, or something that they're not getting, right? But it's like, yeah, that's frustrating, especially when you're trying to work with this person, or you're trying to work out a problem with them, and that can be frustrating, definitely. But yeah, and then for me, it's like, how can I not be frustrated? Because again, this person has their own background and has their own viewpoint, and maybe I'm just looking at it through my lens. So I try to be more understanding of these people. To me, it may maybe to them it's because of where they've come from or what experiences they have.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Um, I often look for quotes because I like to use or make it easy to remember stuff when I'm talking to kids, coaching or teaching. I guess my favorite quote is probably the one you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That one because it's very easy and very simple, yet it can be applicable to more than just sports, right? And like me personally, something I've spoken about before, where oftentimes I would miss opportunities just because I didn't want to do it or didn't feel like I need to do that, pick up this opportunity. But if I had that mindset of you got to try, because if you don't try, then you don't know if you're going to make it, right? That would be a good that I'd like to live my right. You just got to try. What I try and teach the kids as well is like you got to try. You might fail, but you don't know. Try. So yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take is a very good quote, and I like it.
Is there anything in your life that you would like to try that you maybe haven't taken that leap yet?
I've done most of the stuff that I'd like to try. I guess a different career would be something that I'd like to do. Right. You go through. Oh, that'd be cool to do that. That'd be great to do that. But then, you choose a path. You got to kind of go down that path, and then once you're in that path, there's lots of barriers to get out of that path and doing something. But like I like to things. I like to use my hands to fix things. So, like I don't know, like an electrician or a builder or some kind of design would be a cool thing that I would do. Been thinking about that if I was to retire, that maybe I would have a shed where I just stuff with wood.
Nice.
Yeah.
I adopted a tradition in this podcast where the last guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who it'll be. And so the last guest asked, what is something that keeps you up at night?
Right now, it's my PS5 that we just bought. But things that keep you up at night, actually, there's not much. Not much for me. I usually just let stuff go, and I don't really ponder on it too much. But definitely, if there's an unresolved issue, and usually it's a relationship issue or something that I have to deal with tomorrow, then that may be on my mind quite a bit. Yeah, I think it's if something big is coming up the next day, then I go through the scenarios in my head, and then that will keep me up at night. But I don't worry about like big problems or anything like that. Usually it's something that's coming up that I need to prepare for, just run through scenarios.
Thanks. And do you have a question that you'd like to leave for the next guest?
Oh, what would I like to leave for the next guest? Anything.
Anything yet? Anything?
All right. If you had unlimited resources, what would you do? What would you do?
If you had unlimited resources, what would you do?
Yeah.
And would you like to answer that question for yourself?
I would definitely set up my kids. Definitely set up my kids, and then I would travel around the world.
Who comes to mind that you feel like would be a good guest or a good fit for this podcast?
Man. Anybody at school would be awesome, but the PE crew that I know and love, all of those guys would be awesome to do. Lagerquist would be good. Thornbury would be excellent because he can talk his way out of a box. But honestly, like, I'm sure anybody that you talk to will be give you a good, right? There's always something to get from any encounter, and even if sure you'd get some good stuff from him as well.
From who? From a stranger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think your brother would want to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd be done. Sure, it'd be done.
Do you mind to ask Thornbury and your brother if they would be interested? I can ask like Terry myself. So.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Give me like tell me what you told me in terms of what your what the podcast is about, and then I'll just tell them, and then I'm sure they'll be like, "Yep, sweet."
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks. Anything else? Any final things that you want to share, promote, or request from the audience?
No, not a lot, man. I mean, basically, just be a good person, right? Be a good person. Always do right, and help Willis out. He's a good dude. Get on his podcast.
Thank you.
But it's been great, thanks, man. It's been good just talking too, right? It's like you haven't really talked, but it's good that I've talked, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love to do this. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording. You don't have to get off.
Yeah.
I'll stop it, and then we can have some